and the expanding of perception that has to be accomplished to.
You're saying Frank is
to the next phase. Yeah, his music is portraying
the counterblast
the situation in a way.
What is that? It sounds like you have a glass of something, and the plastic straw is, as you move, the plastic straw drags across the rim.
No, it's not me. I can also hear that, but I don't know what it is.
Is it someone breathing? Let me see. Do we have a snoring going on here? Yeah, maybe. There is somebody here, and I haven't blocked it. So you can still hear me? Yeah. Okay, so maybe it was somebody breathing. Okay, so I'm looking for a song to illustrate what? Oh, the new band. Let's just check that. See if I got it right. That concert that you saw, Roxy and Elsewhere, that's the band I'm talking about that he's going to start forming. You know what I mean? The one in Ruth Underwood and...
Mm-hmm. That was a great band.
Yeah.
In Roxy and Elsewhere, I think is where he does Inca Roads, also Mystery Landscape. But
yes.
First they just play the percussion, and it's already amazing.
Yeah.
And then he says, okay, now you're going to get the whole thing, but he makes this dissection of the music, because what is going on is so complex that you cannot see the complexity of the percussion part. You're distracted by all the melodies and the other things going on. So first they play just percussion, and then they play the whole thing. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
And in a way, that's what you do on Marshall McLuhan.
Yes.
They present parts of different aspects of the environment, and then the whole.
You're saying that's what I do?
Composition. Yes, you present some patterns.
Yeah.
And then the whole environment.
Yes.
You present parts of the electric environment, the Gutenberg galaxy, this and that, so that you can see different parts of the composition of the complex music going on. And then the next movement of the symphony.
Yes, correct. Let me see. I'm just looking on one of the archives, looking up somebody listing the bands, and not finding it there. Home. What's this? Zappa books, articles, fanzines, magazines, scrapbook. Maybe it's this other site. Unique Zappa archive, okay. Archive topics. Still looking. Just a second. Doesn't work. Okay, so well, I'm not able to get it through these sites, so I'd have to get my books. So we won't do that. Okay, here's the next article. It says, Zappa's mothers give flawless show. And the headline is misspelling the word give. So it's not a flawless headline. The newspaper made a mistake. So distracted, complimenting Zappa that they fucked up their own grammar. So you still there?
Yes.
Yeah. It says, Frank Zappa, and this is by John Wenderborn for the Oregonian staff, so this is in Oregon. Frank Zappa has always had the musical connection to his work. What does that mean? He's a musician. With the mothers of invention for the past several years, Zappa has created weird sounds and goofy absurdities as sort of a parody or satire, even ironic version of the rock scene. If anyone in the music business has more of an imagination than Zappa, he is yet to surface through the layers of good and bad ideas. He's been the uncrowned king of fun, Zappa has, and listening to his stage rap always has to be done with tongue-in-cheek. Zappa and 9 musical cohorts played the Paramount Northwest Saturday night in an hour-long show of super-produced music. Look at that. Super-produced music more into jazz than into other recognizable musical pattern. And actually, the article is ripped, and it merges, so the I of give is creased out. So they didn't make a mistake in the original. Then the article says, there was some flurry of rock activity from the band, but for the most part, the concert was contemporary in concept and in execution. And it was excellent. Zappa has not taken merely the styles of Chicago and Blood, Sweat, and Tears and made an amalgamation of them. He has gone several steps further. What the band did Saturday was highly sophisticated modern music with improvisation filling in the spaces in the tight arrangements that would make many modern musicians run for cover. Zappa's people were flawless. There wasn't a note or a beat missed by the 6-man brass section and rhythm trio of guitar, bass, and drums. Zappa also played guitar. There was a definite feeling that humor had been diminished by this edition of the mothers. Gone are the 2 singers, that would be Mark and Howard. Gone are the two singers who once toured with the band. Gone are most of the parody bits, although Zappa did inject just enough fun by opening with a tune about a Montana rancher who raises dental floss. He sang Cosmic Debris. He sang Cosmic Debris and did no talking story that original. It's all mixed. It's all torn. Did inject just enough fun by opening with a tune about a Montana rancher who raises dental floss. He sang Cosmic Debris and didn't talking something that originated Saturday afternoon during the group sound check. Oh, that would be Sprechstimme, right? That talking song. It's called Tycho Brahe. He was the guy that influenced Kepler, I think. Kepler studied under him, 500 years ago. Tycho Brahe. That's funny. Zappa does the song with that title, which many find their way into the repertoire. It was good, but needs some polishing. The rest of the music, without lyrics, with bright ensemble playing, and the brass included tenor, doubles, trombone. So that section is all torn up. This is one of whom was Gary Baroni, a recognized jazz player, and another reed man who played baritone sax, baritone oboe, that's right, and other reeds, all with perfection. Is he talking about the Grand Wazoo?
What is he talking about?
Yeah. Okay. The music swung at all times and was kicked along by the energetic rhythm. Zappa himself looked as if the stage act was become a drag, however, and seemed to take what a few rowdies in the crowd had to say too seriously. Most in the opening show crowd were on his side and really enjoying the musical side of the mothers. About a dozen youths were unable to contain their desire to boogie. What were they doing there in the first place? And this apparently bugged Zappa. By responding to their cries, he was egging them on, causing more discomfort among the majority in the audience who were on hand to hear Frank Zappa. The opening band was Reuben the Jets, and this 8-piece band played a group of old rock and roll tunes in a flashy, tight, and talented manner. That was the Boogie Band. So I can't tell. Let's see. Let's talk. Yeah,
it's
this
quite
could
interesting how he's doing the Bonanza, the
How's he doing
Reuben and
Bonanza?
the Jets.
Doing jazz? Jazz is Bonanza?
No, the Reuben and the Jets.
Oh, yeah? Yes, the Bonanza.
And then he's showing the where we are at this human odyssey.
Yes.
And,
but, talking about... Yeah, I guess this is about... I don't know why I thought it was about the next year. Okay, well... now, we're going to read an interview with Zappa about clothes, about his dress.
The first technology.
Yes.
The first weapons.
Yeah. You're doing your homework. You're quoting the master himself.
Of course.
The second thunder.
I cannot...
You cannot stop.
This is the filter. Yes,
the filter, yes. You acquired, you adopted what caused me wear it already. Let's see. What's your... remember, the clothing is the second thunder in fitting his wake.
So the first will be the language?
Yeah. But it's Bob. It begins with B-A-B-A. Baba. Bobby.
Okay.
It begins with Ophanel. But it's also the ba-ba-ba of the sheep or of the group mind due to speech.
The Bob cannot stop blah, 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 blah.
The Thunder has a few other early technologies in it, not just speech, I think. It could include ESP. So, here it is. A guy named Dino Orlando writes an article with Frank called Let's Talk Clothes. Frank Zappa walked on stage of New York's Felt Forum. Now, wait a minute. Zappa, January 72. He's not. This is wrong. This isn't. He's dead, almost dead in January 72. So this might be 1973. I don't know who. I got this article from someone else. What?
He's going to talk about Frank armor.
The armor of his clothes? Yeah, is that what you mean? Yeah. The weaponry? Yep, I think so.
Yes.
Okay. Now, he started playing, and I saw him in the Felt Forum in 74, so maybe he was playing there in 73, too. Frank Zappa walked on stage of New York's Felt Forum in the same worn, baggy blue shirt he was wearing earlier that evening in his dressing room, and the same old jeans ripped on one side over the shiny brace which he wears on his left leg as a result of his Rainbow Theatre accident in London. He wore no makeup, had not combed his hair or buttoned one more button on the shirt. I decided to interview him on his ideas about fashions. Fashions, shouted Frank when I asked him after the show. Man, you've got to be kidding. Yes, Mr. Zappa, I'd like your ideas on the way some artists dress, I insisted. Come on, Frank, it's going to be a trip. Frank says, some trip. This is going to be the freakiest thing I've ever done. I detect a put on here, since he's putting on technology as clothes and all that. I don't know. I think this is he's pretending he's not interested, sort of. And he added, I think you've got the wrong guy. So Dino says, I'm sure I do. That's why I want you, I said. We met the next day at his hotel suite, and this is what came out. Dino says, the reason I'm interviewing you is that I want to somewhat balance this column. Up to now, I've been talking to very dressy types of people, English artists mostly, and new artists who are very conscious of how a performer should look. I'd like to know your opinion about how you think a performer should look. You don't seem to be the dressy type, and you are by far not fashion conscious. But you've been through several changes, and it seems to me the 1970s are going to produce many more changes in music as well as in appearance. Do you personally plan any change in look? Frank says, you mean in the way I dress? Yes. You have gone through several changes, and many times you've been first. Well, I don't plan any changes. I wear whatever is comfortable for the work I do. Dino says, you are wearing a brace on your leg. That's not the reason why you wear ripped blue jeans, is it? He says, I wear blue jeans 50% of the time. Dino, sometimes the things you wear are very fancy, and sometimes they're just very comfortable. Frank, I don't think that I've ever worn anything that was very fancy. It's hard to play in fancy stuff. Dino, well, you've worn velvet slacks and shiny shirts. Is it that you don't particularly like them or plan it? Frank says, I wear whatever's in the suitcase. But you do, yeah. But you do shop for your clothes? But you do shop for your clothes. Yeah, but I don't always wear that stuff on stage. In fact, I have a lot of stuff that I've never worn more than once or twice. Dino says, in other words, you don't pick your clothes to project a visual image of yourself. It's whatever happens to come in handy. And right now you're not wearing your jeans because of the bad leg, but because you feel right and comfortable in them. Yeah. He says, yes. Dino says, your primary interest then is your music, and this is what you want to project? Frank, my biggest worry about what to wear on stage is whether or not the arms are too tight on the shirt. That's understandable, says Dino. Incidentally, is that why you wear baggy shirts? Yes, says Frank. If the arms are too tight when you play your guitar, this arm muscle expands. And if the shirt sleeve is too tight, it makes your hand go slower. So I usually wear short or three-quarter sleeved shirts, or a shirt that has loose, long sleeves. Dino, you can't help the fact that your fans are going to copy you, even visually, meaning in the way you dress. Have you done anything for them from that point of view, or would you do it, or would you do something? Well, I would say that when I was living in New York in 1967, the clothes I wore were a bit more stylized than what I'm wearing now. Some of the things I had were a little more humorous to look at. Dino, yes, I noticed some of your things. Vests, scooped T-shirts. Frank says, I used to wear suspenders and khakis, fireman suspenders. Well, Dino, it's strange that you should adapt this very plain, simple look now that everything is super glamorous. Oh, there's a clue. That's what I asked Frank in 1970. Does he do certain things as an anti-environment to other things that are going on? So right when everybody's into glamour, he's going to make his clothes be really plain. Right? Mm-hmm. He says, I'm not super glamorous. I always wore suspenders. There was nothing glamorous about those. What is this? It's strange. The guy says, Dino says, well, it's strange that you should adapt this very plain, simple look now that everything is super glamorous. He says, I'm not super glamorous. I always wore suspenders. There was nothing glamorous about those kind of clothes in 1967, and I doubt that they'd be glamorous now. But they were right then, says Dino. Yeah, they were right for what I was doing, and I just felt like wearing them. I would probably feel funny wearing those same clothes again. Okay, next part. Dino says, I said that your fans are bound to copy the way you look and dress. They probably have over the years. Beard, mustache. Can you think of any fads which you created and your fans copied? Well, I noticed a few things I started wearing appeared in other places. I was wearing cropped T-shirts with the stomach showing. They copied that. But I don't think of myself as one of the best-dressed men in rock and roll. Dino says, well, you may please yourself, but that has bearing on the way you look. Well, you may please yourself, but that has bearing on the way you look. Your T-shirts, for instance, I'm sure everybody wants to wear them because they have your face on them. Frank says, you mean the T-shirts they were selling at the concert last night? I had nothing to do with those things. Nobody even told me they were made. But your face was on them. I wasn't told about the shirts or that they were using my face on them. The first time I saw them was last night. Dino says, were you embarrassed when that chick handed you the shirt on stage? You looked at it quietly and didn't make a big to-do about it. Frank says, that was the second one I had seen. Oh, look at this. That was the second one I had seen. They were selling purple ones. See? There's that word. A little embed in there. That was the second one I had seen. They were selling purple ones that had block print on it, another design. You know, I don't know where those things come from. I don't ask to have them made, and I don't receive any money from them. As far as I'm concerned, it's
May I digress for a moment?
Okay.
What is purple for you?
What is what?
Purple.
That's my email name.
Yes, but it's a frequency. It's
the only thing I know about is the cliche. The cliche meanings are it's for the emperor and it's also for the magician, which I am both of.
Mystic.
I am the emperor and I'm magical, so I am definitely purple. And Frank.
Oh, we finally get the.
Yes, finally get the code. You finally broke the code. You sat here for years putting up with all my bullshit till the code got revealed, and then you were in.
Yes, this type of rock interviews. What's your favorite color?
Yeah, but Frank did them. So, have you finished analyzing purple?
Yes.
All right, but you've learned a lot from that, eh? You'll be using that in future court appearances. The court of public opinion. Okay, so he says they were selling purple ones that had block print on it. Another design. He says, I don't know where it is, where it comes from. As far as I'm concerned, it's a ripoff, and I think it's a stupid thing. So he didn't like this huge merchant thing that was going to take off. He was one of the first victims of the T-shirt bullshit. What do they call it? Bling? In rap culture?
Yeah, the Mickey Mouse and the Che Guevara.
Right.
Achieved.
Yeah.
The T-shirt treatment.
Okay. Right, and then the guy Dino gets to the issue. Isn't it libelous to use your likeness, Frank? Yes, but the problem is that you've got to track down who made the shirts, take them to court, and then wait 3 years. By the time you get into court, you wind up having to audit some books which may not exist at that time. That's what happened with the toilet poster. Remember the one of him sitting on the crapper? I never posed for a poster, and it went all over the world. And then Dino says, and somebody was making bread from Frank Zappa. That's a classic ripoff. Frank says, that probably happens to a lot of people. Me as a musician is when it has nothing on it. I like this T-shirt I'm wearing. It's reversible. It's 2 colors. If this part gets smelling too bad, I turn it inside out. Then Dino says, then it smells worse. But the trouble is this. You can't help your fans digging you physically and visually. You can't help that they're in love with Frank Zappa. Aren't you going to do anything about it? Frank goes, look here. If somebody wants to wear a T-shirt, he started to get pissed off, I guess. Look here. If somebody wants to wear a T-shirt with a big drawing and they want to pay some guy X number of dollars for a T-shirt and print it with some kind of image, that's their business. If that makes them happy, let them wear the T-shirt. And Dina says, do you think 1970 has brought a change in music and in the way we look? Frank, maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. I don't pay that much attention to it. See, he lives in his mind or in his inner ear. That's his environment. So he's talking about 1970. It does say Words and Music 71, so how could it be on the Fell Farm? And it's after his Rainbow Theater accident. Maybe this is the interview during the Petite Wazoo, which would be September, October 72. Do you think 1970 has brought a change in music and in the way we look? Maybe it has and maybe it hasn't. I don't pay that much attention to it. Now, that's where McLuhan was different. He would look at the figure ground causes of fashion. Then this guy says, Dino says, I think it has brought a tremendous change. Then Frank says, but these changes are always backwards. It's always a recapitulation of something that has already happened. Dino says, what about the things the English artists are wearing, the super sleek, shiny stuff? Frank says, shiny stuff designed along what lines? What's new about a 17th or 18th century costume that's been modified? Also, in the United States, we now have this return of the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So there he is, very aware of fashion. Are you there, Roxy?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was thinking how, as an artist, he was not only producing music, but a whole environment And in a way, the audience is an extension of the artist. Like,
yes.
I was very impressed when you read about McLuhan going into strip club and he saw so much patterns.
Yes.
Like the strip artist putting the audience on as she took her clothes off.
No, wait a minute. I'm not hearing what you're saying. What he went into what club?
The strip.
Oh, yeah, with the topless waitress.
Yes, and everybody is looking just at the tits of the waitresses, and he's making amazing patterns. And
he's talking about the dimness of the environment, the turned-down lights, and the tactility, and all these other factors in the environment. Yeah, it's a very...
And how the stripper put on the audience as she takes her clothes off.
Right.
She's wearing the audience, and I was thinking how even if he doesn't like that people are using T-shirts with his face or imitating how he dresses or whatever, it's part of his creation, of the environment of his band.
Yep, and he's aware of fashion.
Of himself.
He doesn't do it, but he's talking about, well, there's a return of the 30s, 40s, 50s. How come he noticed that? You know, maybe.
But I think he did have some awareness and some type of
fashion awareness.
Clothes.
Yeah, they were later. This is too early.
Like you say, maybe as an anti-environment, but from the beginning he was making these transvestite, the mothers, and all these weird clothes.
Yep. No, he's not being...
He was doing the, not the troubadour, but the...
Troubadour.
The joker.
Evoker.
The joker. You know, he could do both.
Did you say mediocre?
The troubadour. No, Joker.
Oh, the Joker. Right. You mean from Batman movies?
No. Because we talked before about how there were two types of musicians. The troubadour.
Yes.
That was like the sophisticated, the poet.
Yeah.
And then the Joker,
right.
The funny one, the one that makes the satire.
Right.
And he was doing both.
He's doing both. And more.
He was doing this.
He was making movies, so he's quadrophenic.
He could be somehow very masculine and sexy.
Yeah. Another time to be goofy.
And he could also be a clown.
Right. So this is 1971, 72, somewhere in there. And when he meets a guy who's into fashion, he's like what they call a contrarian. He's going to be anti-environmental to the guy. He's going to play down fashion. And we know that he always was very conscious of what his image was. And he does all kinds of wacky forms of dress throughout the 70s and in the 80s, you know? Like he's pretending he's not interested.
Yes.
Because he met a guy who's totally into it. So he says, this guy needs to hear the opposite kind of person. Someone who doesn't have any ideas about fashion. So he acted the opposite to Dino.
Yes, because already his hair and his mustache, that was a big fashion statement.
I missed that. Who?
Like a fashion statement. His hair.
Yes.
And his mustache.
Yes. Yeah.
It
was unique. And, you know, he influenced people with that, his hair and his mustache. Often you would bump into people in that period who looked just like Frank. And they knew they would, so they put on his mustache, beard, hairstyle. Okay, let me just, he says, I think that was all to say there. So he says, also in the United States, we now have this return of the 30s, 40s, and 50s. The Dino says, not always. For example, I would say that David Bowie, among others, is into space clothes, and that's very new. So look at this. Frank says, he immediately knows the fashion history. He goes, those spacesuits were in films called Destination Moon, or one of those old science fiction movies.
Yes, we did
that.
Planet.
Yeah, Captain Beefheart version meets the Forcelings.
The first one.
So he then says, so I would say that space clothes probably originated from a designer who was making costumes for the 1957 Picture Awards, the Oscars. And then the other guy says, Dino says, it's new. It's a costume for a new era. Frank goes, it's not new. It's old. It's from the 50s. It's 1950s modified space clothes. Then Dino says, maybe you just like the 1950 clothes best. I've seen you wear sweaters with big letters and other things. Zappa says, I just happen to have a lot of those clothes. Dino, well, you've done something good. The 50s are good for fashion. You know, they're coming back. Frank, they'll come back for a while, and then they'll go away. Dino, everything does. Frank says, the 1960s will come back. Maybe Beatle wigs will be back in 20 years. You watch, they'll be making coats out of them. Dino, Frank, you were doing outrageous things before Alice Cooper even started. What do you think of his gig? Now, remember, he signed Alice Cooper. Frank says, if he wants to do outrageous things, let him do it. Dino, do you think it's pertinent to his music? Frank, yes, definitely. All right, definitely. Then, where is this? All right. Do you think it's pertinent to his music, Alice Cooper's music? Yes, definitely. Well, it isn't pretty from a fashion point of view, but it's striking. It's gotten a lot of artists wearing makeup. Frank says, I don't. Not that I wouldn't, but fuck it. It's a waste of time putting on makeup. I'll wait until men start wearing bras. He's got a new fashion idea. And then they ask him, did you shorten your hair? Yes, I had to. Is there a reason why you wear your hair at this length? Do you think it's becoming? Well, my hair was a lot longer before. I wouldn't bother to cut it. But when I would eat, it would hang down and get in my mouth. So I started tying it back. It looked shorter, so I figured I might as well cut it to somewhere in between. Dino, but you're not going to cut it any shorter. Frank, I may get it trimmed. It's getting in my mouth now. Never anybody talk about that. Hair in the mouth. Then Dino says, kids are cutting their hair short. Do you like that? Frank, that's their business. It's their hair. But do you like it better? I'm still talking about the changes. Long hair started off as a rebellion against something. You don't know what they rebelled against. So I guess...
But, I would like to say something.
Yeah.
At the time of Napoleon, short hair was the rebel hair because
yes.
the long wigs reminded people of the old regime, the kings and all that, and then short hair like Napoleon was the rebellion.
Right. Now, you have always, I think you told me, had a keen interest in fashion.
I did study design.
Oh, you studied it. Design. That's your career.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yes, I studied music and design. But I always had an interest not only in fashion trends, but in the whole body ornamentation. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I noticed
the whole phenomenon.
On your Facebook page, you will often post fashion things, right? When you see something, you put it out there. Are these coming to you, or do you go looking for new trends in fashion, or just fashion itself? Or you subscribe to certain sources that give you the latest images?
No, I have a group with some of my old classmates, and
right.
We share things about design.
Wow, you have a Facebook group.
Yeah.
There's the secret, Roxy. No one knows about that. That's your trade. So, as a student of fashion, you can see, obviously, that Frank was into designing himself, right?
Yes, because it's like a layer of the expansions of the expression of who you are acting, the role.
Yeah.
What was the phrase? The role and identity.
Yes, the role of identity.
Try to project
Okay, so he's going in more into this. So these kids cutting hair short, that's their business. It's their hair. But do you like it better? I'm still talking about the changes. Long hair start off as a rebellion against something. So I guess the new change has got to be short hair if they want to rebel about something else. Frank says, so they'll have space hair or saran-wrapped wigs. They'll have space hair or saran-wrapped wigs. Dino, nylon.
Like the skinheads.
Yes, yeah.
Went into no hair.
Right. Nylon. Dino says nylon. Frank says nylon stockings with talcum powder. The leper look. He got a whole style there, or an image instantly. Nylon stockings with talcum powder. The leper look. Dino, you know something? I have a funny feeling you're going to come out with some very strange things in the near future. Frank says, don't kid yourself. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen, my look. You know, he's managed himself on the fashion walk.
Yes. He then evolved into a cool, casual, modern guy with his mustache was the only thing that he kept.
Yeah, you're saying he did evolve into a different clothing style. Is that what you just said?
Yes, he was like less extravagant, maybe more practical.
Yeah, yeah.
But he was sort of sophisticated, cool, modern for the 80s. Like he was
for the 80s, right?
Become president.
Yeah, so he could be president. And in the 70s, he would occasionally have himself whole scenarios, props in that, and a photograph. Occasionally, he did bring obviously theatrical. He overdid the theatrical thing, which was humorous. So don't kid yourself. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen, my look. And, you know, he has nothing on probably, not much. And then Dino says, I have some more questions. Are your everyday pants flared or straight-legged when you're not wearing jeans, that is? Frank, well, I had to have some wide pants in order to get the leg over this brace. I had to cut these Levi's for the same reason. Dino, are clothes just functional to you? Yes. Tell you what I look for in a pair of pants. I don't want to squash my balls when I'm sitting down. Tell you what I look for in a pair of pants. I don't want to squash my balls when I'm sitting down. And Dino says, like those English pants? Yes, those can get painful. I know, says Dino. All those English guys are wearing their pants so tight that I look at them and wonder how they sit down. Frank says, they can't. Dino, you mean it's difficult? It looks like the tightness just happens. But that's not true. There are a lot of secrets to cutting those pants to make them look right. The English are always up to some tricks as far as dressing is concerned. So Frank says, what else is there to do over there other than to come up with tricks of clothing? And then Dino says, I interviewed Mark Bolan last week. Of course, he's the extreme opposite of you as far as fashion goes. He went through 4 changes during the interview. I sort of like that. But that's why I wanted to talk to you. I figured you wouldn't do 4 changes. Frank says, no, Dino, I won't do 4 changes. Dino says, incidentally, what is your favorite color? Oh, there's that question. What is your favorite?
I knew it.
Yes, it was coming. What is your favorite color? I read somewhere it's Naples yellow. Was that a put-on? No, Naples yellow is a very nice color. But I seldom have clothes in that color. They just don't make them. Do you wear, look at this. Do you wear any special color? Mostly Ophanel. I probably have more of Ophanel's extra clothes than anyone else. So you know what he says? What did he say instead of purple? Do you wear any special color? Mostly purple. I probably have more purple clothes than anything else. Frank, says Dino, you're Sicilian. Why would you like Naples yellow? Well, Naples yellow is a kind of a paint color that they have in a lot of kitchens. Italian kitchens? All kinds of kitchens. It starts white, then it gets greasy and becomes yellow. Dino, do you have any... Does he mean the wear, right? Somewhat the wear of cooking around it.
Yes.
Becomes yellow.
Yes, because white, it's a very funny shade because it's yellow, gray, or many other colors, but white is
yes,
really hard to.
I knew his favorite color was Naples yellow. I never knew what it was. It means like the average, lower class maybe home that has a white wall, but it turns greasy and yellow. That's Naples yellow. That's ghetto decor. That's interesting. I always wondered about what Naples yellow looked like. Well, we found out.
Well,
right.
He was always giving very original responses.
Yeah.
I think as an environment to this type of silly questions.
Yes. Yeah.
If they ask such a stupid thing, then he will answer with something like that.
Yeah. Let me see. Italian kitchens, all kinds of kitchens. It starts white, then it gets greasy and becomes yellow. Dino, do you have any opinions about musicians who dress up a lot? I think they're having quite a lot of fun. Frank, I think whatever you want to wear is fine. Dino, not always, because I asked one of them recently why he wore such beautiful clothes. He answered, quote, "They give me self-assurance on stage," unquote. That makes me feel good as a designer, but you obviously don't need that self-assurance. Frank, well, I think I would feel awfully strange running out in. Dino, is that just because of your image? No, I just feel weird getting that dressed up, expecting to function musically with that much on my body. Okay, do you like heels? No, I may wear shoes to make me taller, but. Do you like heels? No, no, I may wear shoes to make me taller, but. So, weird getting that dressed up, expecting to function musically with that much on my body. So here is Frank pointing out the collage of other sensory environments, not just musical. But in the end, he is all about music. He's not interested in being teenage music as an environment that these other musicians are. They're all dressing up and making fashion part of their scene.
Yeah, especially in the 70s. There is all this glam rock.
Yeah.
The Keys, David Bowie,
Garrett Dean.
Transgender.
Garrett Dean was a fashion improviser. But, so you get that. Frank?
The punk.
Yes, the punk. Frank was...
so it was a big issue in the 70s.
Right.
The whole stage look.
Did you know about the Vogue fashion, voguing, in the early 80s? People would wear elaborate boxes and things, and then go to clubs with these huge structures attached to them, or they'd have fashion shows. And they called it voguing. Madonna probably came out of that world.
No, I never heard about it.
Yeah, look it up sometime. V-O-G-U-I. V-O-G-U-I-N-G, I guess. Voguing.
But, for example, the Bauhaus here in Berlin, in Germany, they were doing that type of parties, too.
Yes.
Where they will make very elaborate costumes.
Okay, so we're at the... yeah, he's not going to have clothes, pants tighten around his scrotum.
Well, he didn't like things that would distract him or...
That's where he was doing the music.
Bother him. Yeah, he had to feel free to play.
So it's interesting. He's going to emphasize sound, but he's going to be aware of all the other media and modalities around him, comment on them, but he himself remains loyal to sound, or his version of sound. He specializes in sound, but he dresses it up in the clothes that people are wearing. The new, clothes wealth, that post-World War II wealth of clothing, and whether they would call that the fabrics industry or something. So, do you like heels? No, I may wear shoes to make me taller, but... In other words, says Dino, you don't follow any fads. Could you tell me what your birth sign is? He says Sagittarius Capricorn. So that's the first time I've ever seen that. He recognizes it's on the cusp. Sagittarius, Capricorn. Is there a particular look you like on women? Frank, do you mean the kind of clothes they wear? Dino, I mean there's a revamp. We talk about 1950s. There's been 1940s, also very sexy, a lot of boobs, curves, and the whole thing. Or do you just like the plain look, like the young lady who just went by wearing a peasant dress, referring to Gail, Frank's wife. So he either doesn't know it's Gail, like the young lady who just went by wearing a peasant dress. Wow, referring to Gail, Frank's wife. I don't think he would say that. If he knew it was Gail and his wife.
But that was also one of the trends in the 70s.
Yes.
That type of...
I call them Bulgarian something.
Yeah, right. That type of Bohemian.
No, Bulgarian. Yeah. Bulgarian peasant look. They look like Russians, you know. But they're babushkas. Okay, he says, right. I don't really pay that much attention to girls' clothes. What turns you on about a woman? Now look at this. He says, the vibes. He's into coitus. The vibes. They also come through clothes, you know. Yeah, says Frank. Well, sometimes they come through the clothes. Sometimes the clothes come through them. Dino, it's like a pretty package. It somehow appeals to you, and it's not only the inside. He says, right. You see, the whole thing, and certain things will stick out. And if you wind up judging everybody by what they wear, you're going to be in trouble. With clothes, a lot has to do with how much time you devote to dressing up and how much money you have to spend on the project of adorning your body. People with more money certainly have the advantage of getting their clothes act together. And people with no time or money on their hands can't do much shopping for clothes. Dino says, in your dressing room last night, I noticed quite a few nicely dressed people, the girls especially. That's the reason I'm asking you these questions. Frank says, well, I have nothing to do with that. As far as the people in the group, what they wear on stage is their business. I don't tell them what they have to wear. Dino, you don't really think it's pertinent to their music? Well, obviously, if you were to have the whole band decked in some flamboyant costume, uniquely detailed in every respect, the lights carefully aimed at each one of them so that every sequin would glitter into the audience, the visual impact would be 10 times greater, but nobody would bother to listen to the music. See, there he's into the sound. It would be a fantastic spectacle, and the audience might like it, but do you know what it would cost to do that? Dino says, yes, but it's not only a matter of cost with you. You don't think that this is your message. You think they want to hear the music. Frank, well, I don't know if they want to hear the music. I'm just not into dressing the band up like that. Dino, when I went to the Academy of Music last week to see T-Rex, that'd be Mark Bolan, the people were wearing sprinkles on their faces and top hats, and they all looked like little Mark Bolans, the lead of T-Rex. Tyrannosaurus Rex, I think it was, Tyrannosaurus Rex. Then Frank says, they were dressing up like that in Los Angeles in 1967. So it's about time it got to New York. In Los Angeles, between 1964 and 1967, it was pretty much the height of the freak period. And there were people wearing the most grotesque clothes you ever saw. Kids were making their own clothes because nobody was selling unusual clothes. They would sit for hours putting things together and would change their clothes 5 or 6 times a day. It would seem that the only reason they had for being alive was to dress up and go someplace where people could look at them. Oh, look at this. Dino says, to find somebody they could identify with. Frank says, well, no, it was more than that. The whole idea of outraging people who were wearing normal clothes was more prominent in their minds. Dino, it was another rebellion.
But, maybe that has to do with the fact that McLuhan said the electronic environment caused a loss of identity.
Yes.
And maybe people were looking for this identity.
And they knew they had more than one during the day. That's Alice in Wonderland. She says, they ask her what is she, and she says, I don't know, I have no idea.
The quadrophenia.
Yeah. Alice in Wonderland.
I'm going to be a punk, and next weekend I'm going to be a disco.
Well, they do this during the day.
Disco boy.
In L.A., they were changing. clothes several times a day.
Yes.
So I forgot. Alice in Wonderland she said, I don't know who I am. I've been so many different people today.
And I think before people were really more into following trends.
Yeah.
Each season and each decade.
They were matching. Now with the global theater, you start making. You make your design of yourself. You don't match it with some...
Yes, and it's not as important to be part of some type of trend, because tomorrow is already... When the things are in the store, they're already old.
Right. When you're in Berlin and you're hip.
No, actually, in Berlin, people doesn't follow that much trends. People is not that fashionable. They're
really?
More into comfort and.
They're cool.
It's not. Maybe in Paris, Vienna, London.
Okay.
People do a little.
Berlin's different. Okay. So they want to find somebody they could identify with. Well, no, it was more than that, says Frank. The whole idea of outraging people who were wearing normal clothes was more prominent in their minds. Dino, it was another rebellion. Yes, says Frank. At that time, it was just a minority wearing those unusual clothes. So I would say in a town the size of Hollywood, I don't know how many millions of people are there, you would have a couple of thousand kids who were wearing weird clothes. They would go out in the street at night, and you would see raised eyebrows and people panicking at the sight of them. It was some trip. Dino says, this gives me a lead. I was just thinking about the fact that it started off as a rebellion, and it changed now to sort of a get-together kind of thing. You know, at one time, everybody was trying to do his own thing and just do it as crazy as possible before they wanted to be different. Now they're all trying to look like somebody. Okay, before they wanted to be different in the 60s. Now they are all trying to look like somebody. So sociologically, it is a change. Not belonging and then belonging. Not conforming and then conforming. Then Frank says, sociologically, it's a reversion. Sociologically, the whole concept of looking like the other guy is back to the 50s. It's a different kind of conformity. If you look at the clothes of the 50s, in high school, for instance, the kids would get together and there would be a trend for one particular brand of shirt or shoes or pants. Everybody had to wear exactly the same thing. Now that the 50s are coming back musically and certain fashions are coming back from the 50s, the whole conformist concept of the 50s is also coming back. And I think that's a negative concept. People may not be dressing in all 1950s costumes and appearing on the street that way. People may not be dressing in all 1950s costumes and appearing on the street that way, but everybody will wear a certain type of garment, and they will do it just so they fit in with their peers. Dino says, from a fashion point of view, nothing ever comes back the same. Sneakers, for example, were fashionable in 1950, but today's sneakers have platforms. So even though it may look the same, it is not. Do you think it's true of music as well? So he's talking about the cliche archetype retrieval process there. So the knight didn't come back as a knight, it came back as an automobile. A knight in shining armor is the driver in a car. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because even if trends are retrieved, there are, for example, new materials like craft, stretch, or so the clothes may have some details of cut or from a period, but maybe the materials are different. So it's never the same replay.
Right.
And it's mixed, like you said, everything is now a collage.
Right. Especially clothing styles. You could say that there always were collage in fashion, but nowadays it's different qualities of materials. They might have a pencil stuck on something. You know, the collage is beyond the world of clothes. like Cubism, putting pieces of newspaper in the painting.
Yes, and for example, in the 70s, the big thing was this wash and wear, this synthetic clothing.
Yeah.
You didn't need to iron them, but I think they were awful to wear. It was like
they were always what?
Plastic bag. Not very comfortable to wear. Sometimes I got some 70s stuff, and it's like wearing a plastic bag.
Oh, yeah, right.
The feeling is awful.
Yeah.
It's all polyester.
Yeah, that sounds crummy. Okay, let's see. Frank saying, people may not be dressing in all 1950s costumes and appearing on the street that way, but everybody will wear a certain type of garment, and they will do it just so they fit in with their peers. Dino, from a fashion point of view, nothing ever comes back the same. Sneakers, for example, were fashionable in 1950, but today sneakers have platforms. So even though it may look the same, it is not. Do you think it's true of music as well? Yes, says Frank. The music of the 50s is very difficult to bring back in 100% form because of the way in which it was recorded and the consciousness of the people who were recording. It was a lot more naive in those days. It's just not naive anymore. That's the one thing missing from all the 1950 reruns you hear about.
Yes, and I was thinking about these bands as environments, and there are this type of urban tribes. It's not much trend they're following, but they want to belong to these tribes.
Oh, yeah, you're showing me in Berlin. The immigrants.
I want to be punk, I want to be wherever. And they have like their music, their drugs, their look. It's a whole... their clubs.
It's a theatrical performance. They want to...
Yeah.
They're aware of the global theater. So Frank says that's the one thing... Now, you're talking about those gangs that are groups that of immigrants and that, right?
Well, all types of people, but usually... people don't stay the same forever now. Like, I don't know, before people would be communists forever or whatever. And now it's like every 6 months people listen to something else.
Right.
The new tribe or the new guru or the new type of yoga or...
The new fake death.
They dress and... they dress and eat and go to the clubs that are...
Do you... You have a pretty good...
To that,
you have a pretty good closet. Do you follow any fads in any ways?
Sometimes for fun, if I like something, but I'm not into following trends.
Right, so you do a collage of whatever you want to put together, which is what a lot of people do. You're part of the individualist, non-conformist style.
Well, I think you can have an awareness of the effects of clothing, and you can really use them.
Did you learn that in fashion school?
For the environment.
Did you learn that?
Well, yes, you learn a lot about that. Yeah.
So you know, for me, I know 2 kinds of clothes. You know 50 kinds of clothes.
Well, there are many types of uniforms and environments. And
yeah.
Yes, it's, like you said, it's...
Okay, so Dina says... Frank says the one thing missing from all the 1950 reruns you hear about is the naivety. Dino says, I would like to find out how you feel about the way people look today since you do reach them with your music. Do you understand their clothes? Frank says, you want me to tell you what I think about the way people look today? He says, I think that they look the same as they always did, only different.
But it is true that these objects, like McLuhan said, all objects are like words. So it's a part of the non-verbal communication.
Yes.
You can say a lot. maybe
the weaponry.
you're not even aware, but people is going to read all these things. Like in a knot, every single thing is considered and thought of.
Yeah.
What type of leg color, what type of, because that will talk to a very precise type of consumer. And even if you're not aware of that, people is reading all these visuals. You're communicating in many ways.
Yeah.
The non-verbal types of.
Yes. Now, remember, McLuhan says all technologies are words, so maybe nonverbal should be replaced by paraverbal. Paraverbal communication. Sort of, he's still rotating around the verbal or around words. In all technologies are words, McLuhan claimed was one of his last insights. Okay, so Dina says, I would like to find out how you feel about the way people look today since you do reach them with your music. Do you understand their clothes? You want me to tell you what I think about the way people look today? I think that they look the same as they always did, only different. Dino says, that's exactly what I said. Nothing ever comes back the same. Frank says, but it comes back, you know. The guy says, Dino says, no, it doesn't. What do you think is glamorous today? He's trying to have a fight. What do you think is glamorous today, for instance? Frank says, I don't know. You tell me. Then Dino says, you're glamorous. Musicians, music people like you. You are all doing things that turn people on today. Look at Mick Jagger with all the society people following him. A rock critic said recently that Madison Square Garden is the 1970s answer to the Hotel Plaza Ballroom. Maybe it is. How did you like the concert last night? Frank says, I think the sound got terribly lost. We're going down there this afternoon to see if we can solve those problems and make it sound better for tonight's concert. That's the hardest part about putting any kind of band on stage. You have the acoustics of the room, the taste of the audience, and the hands of the mixer, all to contend with. What I heard on stage had no bearing on what was going on up front. I thought it sounded okay on stage. Dino says, there was a lot of feedback, but nevertheless it was excellent. I liked it, and in exchange, if you decide to do something about the next step in clothes, I'll do it for you. And then Frank says, look at that. He says, well, what do you have in mind, Dino? Dino says, I couldn't answer. It takes concentration. Now you are into very comfortable clothes. Now you are into very comfortable clothes and don't have a lead on what you'd like me to design for you. Frank, you know it's more than just being comfortable. I like old clothes that are already broken in. I hate to put on something that is right out of the stirrup. It feels weird. So then Dino says, before we left, Frank and I were pals. And he wanted very much... Before we left, Frank and I were pals, and he wanted very much to give tips on what he'd like to see as jewelry. Since jewelry catches on to the instruments, he would like to have it ingrown into the skin, like, let's say, a watch transplanted into your wrist with phosphorescent digits so that you can see it through the skin and in the dark. Not very practical? Well, Frank is a genius, and geniuses aren't always practical. It was a beautiful, bright, sunny fall day in New York. Frank had done the freakiest thing he'd ever thought of, and I had had a ball, as I suspected. We were all very happy.
Yeah, he already had this idea of the technology, and he's where
you blipped out.
Better.
You're blipping out. What did you say? He had an idea about technology?
Yeah, he's already presenting this concept of technology to wear.
Yes, putting it in your skin.
To perform better.
Are you talking about him putting technology, in your skin? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, there are already things like that, like bracelets and watches, and for example, clothing with speakers and different type of lights.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we know this was in the fall. This article. I missed your last words. Did I drown something out?
No.
Okay.
No, but he was a visionary.
Yes.
Because I do think that will develop more.
You're saying it will?
I think it will. This technology to wear.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of people are saying that. So let's take a musical. We're going to do one more hour, and we'll end at one my time. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Okay. So I'm going to play some music for a minute, just a short, and then I have to get a drink in the. Well, I need whatever one does on a break. I'm going to do it. Okay.
Okay. So I'll hang up.
Oh no! Just I'm just going to stay on, and you can do what you want.
Okay.
I'll put us on mute and take a 5-minute break. Okay?
All right.
I'll play some music. What do you want to hear? What kind of music you want to hear? Or what?
Maybe the cosmic debris.
Do we have that? Let's see. Cosmic. Have you ever heard it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Cosmic debris. I'll just look.
Yes, but it's just that. I mean, when I sometimes think about it, it's like it's so. This whole environment, this whole mystery landscape is so amazing. It's hard not to think that it's all fantasy, that it's all cosmic debris.
Yes, yeah.
So we are aware of how we made sound, but
okay, I'm going to play it through out of my system, my 1200 Zappa stuff. So it may not be as perfect quality as it does through Bill, but should be good enough. And I've got to.
But I think at the end, it's all about challenging.
Yeah.
The members of the band and expanding what we think is possible. So that's already worth the whole
investigation.
Discussion.
Right.
Exploration.
Okay, we've got here 4 cosmic debris. 1973, when it first came out, 1988, 1984, 1979. I'm going to play the 88 one because that might be big band stuff. You know, he's got those 8 horns behind him. So let's do the 1988. So I got to make sure the, whatever you call it. Been a while since I've done it. Short something. Where is it? Sound. Okay, sound must go into Soundflower. We know that word. And then this, put that up. Is that going to do it? No. So what am I missing? Skype.
Yeah, because it's quite interesting that you are exploring the mystery landscape, but you are an anti-environment to what we always thought was the mystery landscape, like this type of cosmic debris guru Zappa criticizes all the time.
Yeah.
If, you are doing it with all the introduction of
what am I doing?
Yeah, exploring the mystery landscape.
Yes. And that's cosmic debris?
No. Because if you will do it another way, you will sound like this type of cosmic debris guru.
Right. Oh, yeah. Exactly.
So how to approach the mystery landscape in a way that doesn't fall into New Age and all this.
Right.
Type of cosmic debris talk.
Yes. Okay, so why Maybe it's coming through here.
And I think art, it's a phenomenon that it's a tool to explore this.
Yes, art is anti-dogma. It goes anti-dogma,
It's about the perception and expansion.
Yeah.
And
because it has to avoid the doctrinal concepts. Well,
and that's why, I mean, we take Zappa to illustrate this, because sometimes it might seem like a big digression, like they're not talking about Zappa or his music, but we are.
Yes.
We are, because that's what we learned from McLuhan, how to explore art. It's much more than just a song.
You have to include the whole environment, the context that the artist comes out of. I think maybe something was I was disconnected. Let's see if this works. Hey, Bill, help me get the sound going. What have I turned off? The zip? Is the SIP fucked up? What if I undo that? See if that makes it work. Wasting too much time doing this. Why doesn't it come through? Maybe we're not even on the air. Where is it? Hey, let's get Bill's attention. Find out, Bill, what the fuck situation we're in. I'll panic button him.
We just keep talking about fashion and trends. And
Wait, did Bill fall asleep? Why can't this come through? Why can't even Bill come on? Come on, Bill. I'm pressing the panic button.
The panic button. That's the name for it.
Yeah, that's what it says. Ah, man, this is stupid. Maybe.
Try something else. Whatever. Play something else.
Oh, look. It's on. It's coming through. Jeez, it's coming through headphones and another level. So, I don't know, man. I don't know what we're playing. How do you get to hear this? We may have been talking and not being recorded. Okay, look at that. Hey, Bill, have we not been recorded for the last 3 hours?
No, it's all recorded, Bob.
What happened? How come I can't hear the music on my phone? Because I was disconnected from Skype? That makes sense.
Yeah, you're unhooked from Skype.
Okay, normally I'm on the phone, I can hear the music. Why haven't I been able to hear it? It's only coming through my headphones, which is a Skype connection. I don't understand it. Do you, Bill?
No. Shouldn't work that way.
Okay, well, what did we play? Cosmic Debris?
Yeah.
Bill, what did it stay here? Explain a few things.
What?
I'd like to play a song from my computer. And I just did that, right?
Well, if you want to play it from your computer, it has to go through Skype, and that wouldn't work if Skype was disconnected.
Well, how did you play it?
No, I didn't play anything. You had to have.
Well, how did it happen? I didn't click anything other than my own computer. Bill?
Yeah,
How did it get played?
I don't know what you did. So.
Okay, I've got my iTunes here. I got 1,200 Zappa songs. I click on it and make sure it goes through Soundflower.
Right.
And I don't hear anything. I don't think anything's happening. And then you come in, hook me up with the Skype. That was dead. And then I hear the music playing. What music got played? Well, you're not going to help, Bill.
Well, nothing
okay,
came
so
through this end, so I'd have no idea what you did, Bob.
What do you mean? The speaker just came on. I mean, headphones. I heard it in the headphones. You mean it was only happening in my fucking headphones, not yours?
Yeah, correct.
Oh, so they have not heard anything yet?
No.
Okay, so what was going on during? Well, we were just talking. We were coming through, right?
Yeah, I heard you both talking.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to try play this Cosmic Debris. I don't hear it on the phone. Is it playing, Bill, on the radio?
No.
Oh. What happened to the Mr. Man?
No, it would naturally went right into the next version. Went into the 1984 version from the 1988. We heard the 88. So let's put this down. Sound down. Uh-oh, here we are. Well, we got to get that. There we are. Okay, so we got 35, 40 minutes. Let's go on to the next part. Or do you have something you want to talk about?
Well, let's go into the next part.
I mean, you've got a couple of reviews here of Grand Wazoo, but we've done that. Try to find some statement from Frank about it. You know, Noel Redding, former Jimi Hendrix bassist, I have a little article, has filed suit against Frank Zappa for $25,000 in medical expenses in Superior Court here in L.A. The suit stems from a fall Noel Redding took on an exterior staircase at Zappa's home while a guest there in September 71. That's before, that's just after I was there and just before his accident. But I was thinking, this was the new strategy of bugging Frank. Go over his house, fall down, sue him. Another way to get back at Frank. Says Noel Redding's claim alleges that Zappa and his household Redding's claim alleges that Zappa and his household negligently maintained a hazardous condition on an improperly lit staircase with an insufficient handrail. The suit states that Redding has been unable to work since the injuries from his fall. Well, that happened.
So we're all going to sue Frank Zappa for the fall.
Yes, for the that big fall, the cosmic debris. Let's see, what's this one? This is April 73. Steve, who's this Steve guy? Steve Howe, yeah. Where? Okay, Frank. All right, so this is the band that I was talking about. This is after Grand Wazoo. So this is a magazine called Sounds, April 21st, 1973. Frank Zappa has always had a flair for putting together monster bands capable of recreating the unholy musical thoughts he'd had welled up in his head. In his performance Friday night at the Hollywood Palladium, with the band billed as the mother's invention, Frank proved once again that he is the mastermind band leader of all time. Now that's fucking good talk. mastermind band leader of all time. I agree with that. This is Steve Rosen is writing this. His hair a little shorter and his nose a little longer, the Grand Wazoo opened his set with a new piece entitled Would You Believe It? No, what? Entitled, and has a quote, I guess Zappa went, Would you believe it? As he said the title, because the title is redundant. He seemed intent from the opening bars of music on relaying to the audience that he was not up there to goose chickens or drop his pants, but rather to produce viable and serious music. Whereas in several of Zappa's most recent bands, with the two ex-Turtles, that would be before his accident, he had tended to waver between jazz and rock. His latest group is jazz channeled through Zappa's unique blender. With him was nouveau French violinist Jean-Luc Ponty, George Duke, ex-Cannonball Adderley. He was on keyboards, Bruce Fowler, ex-Woody Herman on trombone, and Ralph Humphrey, ex-Don Ellis Band on drums. With these jazz notables, there could be no doubt where Zappa intended to experiment this time. Redundant, exemplified perfectly the complete Zappa at work. Imaginative melodies laid over complex rhythm patterns, interspersed with Frank's spicy guitar and Jean-Luc Ponty's screeching violin. The Goatee Mother reached back a few albums and performed a sequence of songs from the Uncle Meat album. With his back to the audience, Frank conducted the group via the classic hand motions, easing the group from passage to passage. Another new selection called 50-50 was presented, followed by a bizarre composition about dental floss, which became like his most famous requested song, Growing Dental Floss in Montana. But first time hearing bizarre composition. At times, during the newer material, the band would find its way into an interesting melody/rhythm sequence, which was extended to the point of sterility. Because the pieces tend to be on the long side, an average of 10 minutes each, the curtailing of the jams would not have been out of order. Didn't want the jamming. The Palladium is not the ideal setting in which to see a group. General admission constitutes undue pushing and shoving once the doors are open to secure a good spot on the floor to view the band. General admission constitutes undue pushing and shoving once the doors are open to secure a good spot on the floor to view the band. Not unlike the ever-used sardine can analogy. Not unlike the overused sardine can analogy, the Palladium promoters stuff as many people as possible into the medium-sized arena with no consideration of sanitation. One small bathroom up a flight of stairs, or consideration of ventilation, seems non-existent, or at least it seems that way. Stuff as many people as possible into the medium-sized arena with no consideration of sanitation, one small bathroom up a flight of stairs, or ventilation seems non-existent, or at least it seems that way, matters. No consideration of sanitation or ventilation matters. But the musical mentor that is Frank Zappa couldn't be stifled by these environmental problems. A typical Zappa title, Curse of the Zomboids. I never heard of that before. Curse of the Zomboids, a typical Zappa title, spewed forth from the bevy of instruments covering the stage. Ponty's violin and Ian Underwood's sax, clarinet, flute lines shaping the sound of the piece. Notwithstanding the unparalleled ability of Frank as a composer-arranger, is his talent to project his avant-garde mainstream jazz in such a way that the common rock fan will be able to find something in it. The rhythm patterns, though unbelievably complex on paper, make you actually want to stand up and dance. The melodies, at times highly dissonant and seemingly without tonal center, the melodies have no tonal center. Mm-hmm. That'd be tactility. The melodies, at times highly dissonant and seemingly without tonal center, is just contagious enough to leave you whistling the melody when you go home. From here then is no telling where the great freak of all time, holy God, this guy is very impressed with Frank. From here then is no telling where the great freak of all time will go. He's touched on the psychedelic, cruising for burgers, music, rock and roll, and most recently jazz.
Maybe the lack of tonal center is what Matlung's talking about, that there is no more fixed perspective.
Exactly. No, really. So there's a quote from Frank. I know we're supposed to leave, and you're supposed to clap, and we come out and do an encore, but we don't have time for that. So just pretend that we've left, and you've applauded, and now we're back. So bypass the going away and coming back. End of quote. And with that elegantly unpretentious introduction out of the way, Frank and crew King Konged their way into the final number of the evening, Chunga's Revenge. A heartfelt and deserving round of applause and cheering followed Zappa as he left the stage, a cigarette dangling from his mouth and carrying his Fender Telecaster. Before leaving, he mentioned that playing Los Angeles is just like playing for friends. And from the response he received, he was not far wrong. Well, not completely correct. They weren't his friends. I don't know what that means.
Friends in quotes.
Yes, friends in quotes. We got here more. Well, here's an interesting thing to read. This is Downbeat magazine. What would the jazz guys think of Frank? You know what I mean? We just had a pop review. Okay. So they played at the Civic Center Music Hall in Oklahoma City. And this is a review by Lyle Jones.
Yeah, that's interesting to see.
Right. So here's what the
jazz environment talking about
Frank
Zappa.
That's right, the jazz environment. So it starts off, because the state high school basketball tournaments were in town, the conversation in the Holiday Inn lobby among trombonist Bruce Fowler, pianist George Duke, and Downbeat, meaning himself, took place over and around the heads of a phalanx of cheerleaders who, upon discovering the Zappa group in their midst, seemed ready to turn in their uniforms for the jeans and halters of the groupie. Yeah, they wanted to be with groupies instantly. Nevertheless, just before your reporter was swept into the street by one platoon of girls, he heard Fowler say, quote, "Just say that we do some far-out groovy stuff." I guess he was saying that to the reporter. He got swept away. "Just say that we do some far-out groovy stuff," unquote. Lyle says, he was right. Of course, those who came to boogie with a whole evening of rock and roll probably felt disappointed. The new mothers, as their leader calls them, fuse many musical types in their presentation. Yesterday's acid rock and today's boogie certainly among them. But their raw material seems to include just about everything the listener can imagine. The parameters, so he's going to stretch sound, extremely stretched acoustic space. The parameters of the evening's material were provided by two segments from a long, unnamed piece, which was largely a feature for George Duke. One moment found the synthesizer running amok. A terrible gale punctuated only by freely skittering electronic leaves from Ian Underwood and Jean-Luc Ponty. The sound was nearly beyond music, into a fearsome impression of madness in nature. Holy shit. Remember, that's what Garrett said. When we saw it.
I never heard something by Zappa that was really like beyond musical, like really chaotic, like free jazz.
No, you say you haven't. No, like it's controlled.
He's exaggerating.
Yes. Garrett Dean, we saw Zappa in Halifax in 1984, and he said it's like he's harnessing the forces of nature. So it's the first time I've heard anybody say, into a fearsome impression of madness in nature. And then out of the sonic chaos came Duke on acoustic piano, striding in ragtime. The ensemble dropped out, and Duke went on as the archetypical solo pianist in the New Orleans sporting house. Within these parameters, almost nothing remained untouched by Zappa's composition and the Mothers' improvisation. To analyze even briefly all the numbers played that night would be impossible within the space we have here. The Mothers assault, there's your challenge. The Mothers assault the audience, daring the listeners to follow the band through the dizzying changes of time signature style, form, and sound. Okay, the next part is a little hard to read. The pieces. Inca Roads. The piece Inca Roads provides a good example. The composition opens with a theme statement by Mrs. Underwood on marimba, 4/4 and 3/4, 3/4 alternate. Back in 4, Bruce Fowler on amplified trombone takes a solo. Zappa steps to the mic and does a sprechstimme, that's spoken song, right? Does a sprechstimme segment in which he tells a tale of mythical spacemen who landed high in the Andes in prehistoric times. He weaves the story around ensemble swells, which can only be compared to awesome sirens. Then the band takes over, and Underwood comes out for a strong amplified flute solo. That's Ian Underwood. Behind Underwood, the other horn players look as if they could be riffing, but your ears tell you that the sounds are not riffs, but odd electronic comments, bleats and honks. Bleats and honks.
Yes, that was what I was talking about in the film.
Speak up a little bit.
Theater.
Talking what?
Yeah, in the film, in the Roxy Theater, they play first the percussion, and then they play the whole thing, exposing also the mystery landscape. This whole piece is a big challenge, far out, which is also like a description of what you do.
What I do. The new song from Bob.
Out, so, to challenge you, and for example, he made fun of all this cosmic debris and all this weird stuff.
Right.
But at the same time, he's presenting to the audience. He explains, like he said, this type of narration, sort of singing but talking.
Yes.
Like in the opera. That these mountains, the top of the mountains, flattened or cut.
You got to fix your phone.
Type of
adjust your phone or your position. It's sort of slightly breaking up. Maybe it's just been you've been on it too long. But fix your mic or something. Make sure you're in just for this last part of the show here. Are you? Have you improved something?
Well, I'm to. I don't know.
Okay, that's a little better. That's better. So what you're saying? What?
Yes, he's narrating that the top of the mountains have been cut with that unknown technology to make this sort of landing.
Oh yeah. That happened in Nazca. You mean you've heard this? You've seen it in the documentary?
Yeah, he's telling the audience about this weird stuff.
Yeah, that's the famous Nazca line.
He's one of that, but at the same time, he's challenging the audience to think about these weird things that I don't explain. Like, it's not that maybe aliens came, but that there is no time and things are planted all the time in the past, in the future.
Right.
It's no linear. So that would explain the pyramids and all these weird anomalies.
And Frank was doing that.
Yes, he's challenging the audience with the music, with the very complex rhythms, but he does this in a way that it doesn't. It's not like contemporary music that might be tiresome because it's so complex. You even want to dance, like he says.
Yeah.
He's doing really pushing all limits of your perception and your logic.
Yeah. Your mind assumptions.
Think
your natural assumptions. He's shocking.
All this, and this is the new song.
Yes.
This is the weird stuff.
like Iron Dome and Dobbstown, the new song. Okay, so they're saying comping electronically is George Duke, who leans from side to side to offer notes from the grand, from the electronic piano, and from the organ. Yeah, like I guess he has to reach across, do a bit of grand piano, then the electric piano, then the organ. Suddenly, it's back to ensemble, marimba lead, and there are unhatched chickens from pictures at an exhibition dancing in the reed work. Pictures at an exhibition, I heard of that. Somebody's painting. Dancing in the reed work. Other compositions and solos draw from as wide a range of possibilities. 50-50 opens with Duke smoking as he did with Cannonball. A minor blues theme emerges, and the listener's confidence in knowing where he is returns. But the blues gives way to one of Zappa's favorite forms, a march tempo. Duke cranks up the synthesizer, and again we must hold on to our seats. Ponte's electric violin speaks Eva basso, something like that. Ponte's electric violin speaks something basso during a dizzying solo. Zappa's solo is 1966 acid rock from the coast. That's not necessarily the case. Frank, he upgraded that stuff. The group's astonishing range of musical exploration, astonishing. It was astonishing to witness this stuff. The group's astonishing range of musical exploration alone should be enough to exhaust the listener. Just the range of what they could do. That's like Ion. Ion can exhaust, well, actually Ion energizes you, but he could be accused of exhausting people. We cover so much material when we have a long Ion session, right? But you actually don't feel I don't feel exhausted with Ion. Okay, the group's astonishing range of musical...
I will make the analogy that, for example, every week you have a new information.
Yes.
New things to keep up. Is this fast tempo, these many rhythms, these many melodies. And, yes, it's like that, like Inca Road.
Yes.
The exploration of the mystery landscape back to Ithaca. The jet lag. The jet lag Frank was talking about at the beginning. I have jet lag.
Yes.
This trip is too much. Even he got tired.
Yes, the Zappa article, right. Okay, the group's astonishing range of musical exploration alone should be enough to exhaust the listener. Yet there is more. Humor characterizes an evening with Zappa almost as much as a trip through music history. The titles of compositions: Cosmic Debris, in brackets, about gurus; Montana, in brackets, who else would name a tune Montana and then come on with a quasi-Aaron Copland theme? And the familiar Mr. Green Jeans.
That's the Bonanza.
Bonanza? Yeah.
Yeah, Bonanza.
And the familiar Mr. Green Jeans, King Kong and Chunga's Revenge. Zappa himself, making a production of tuning the group and gaining the evening's first standing ovation in the process. I guess these different things he did. Making a production of tuning the group. So, when they were starting off, he's tuning the group and gaining the evening's first standing ovation in the process. Consulting the audience at length about mix and balance. Also, the humor permeates the music with odd voicings, absurd lyrics, and incredulously in view of a sentence above. And riffing, but in brackets, incredulously in view of a sentence above. What was said a sentence above? And riffing by trombone, violin, and guitar behind an Underwood soprano ride. Incredulously in view of a sentence above. I don't know what that means. Something he says before... riffing, I guess it's riffing as opposed to discipline. Riffing by trombone in view. Okay, one's first impression of Zappa on the stage is that he has a great sense of humor. His rapport with the audience is deep and immediate. Yet once the music starts, Zappa takes himself far from the audience. He concentrates completely on what he's doing and on the work of the other musicians. In addition, he produces masterful guitar work. This is an awesome review.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't say great guitar, but he's saying masterful. That's what it is. It's masterful. The other soloists in the Mothers also combine first-class musicianship with distinctive stage presence. George Duke, who has so very much to offer the careful listener, grins wickedly at other members of the group after he has done something particularly successful on one of his keyboards. At other times, his face shows excruciating personal involvement in the sound as he grimaces with his eyes shut tightly. Jean-Luc Ponty also contributes much. He ranges all the way from down-home American fiddling through Stefan Grappelli or whatever, and beyond. When not playing, he studies the others, his violin usually still under his chin. Ian Underwood brings the greatest array of sounds to the group. His alto has Bird in it. Charlie Bird? Who's Charlie Bird? Charlie Bird Parker, right. His alto has Charlie Parker in it. He has superb technique on flute and plays weird electronic clarinet. His electronic soprano sax sounds nearly like a wah-wah guitar, a parallel enforced by his Zappa-like phrasing on the instrument. On stage, he is motionless, often apparently oblivious to the tumult around him. Bruce Fowler, on the other hand, is in constant motion. His head bobs from side to side and up and down interminably whenever his trombone is inactive. When he solos, he is the introvert of the group, playing softly, even with amplification. His work is rhythmic and technically disciplined. Then he has a brother, Tom Fowler. Tom Fowler rocks back and forth in time with his notably solid and somehow unobtrusive work. Drummer Chester Humphrey is also unusually inconspicuous, even when smashing away with both hands in steady quarter notes during march segments. Smashing away. Miss Ruth Underwood participates in most ensembles and stays busy manning, in brackets, womaning, as many instruments as Ian. Incredible things, they eventually get divorced. Incredible things happen while this group performs. Their free-form work, which always appears as a segment of a larger whole, not an overindulging spree, is tight and meaningful. In brackets, Zappa often conducts, and almost always at least cues. So it says, Zappa often conducts, and almost always at least cues. Cues, that's an action. This group is well rehearsed, and each member seems to know what will and will not fit at a certain point. Their improvisational capability staggers this observer. Look at that. Their improvisational capability staggers this observer. Bruce Fowler was right, but far out, in quotes, and groovy do not begin to cover Frank Zappa and the others. They are stunning. What an awesome review. That's just one of the best reviews I've ever read.
It's the opposite of the one you read at the beginning.
Yeah.
Where he was saying the intervals are some, the rhythms and this and that. It's that's cacophony. Or
you mean the Rolling Stone guy?
Yes.
Yeah. The bad review. Okay, let me just tell Bill we're going to stop at this hour. Stop being in 10 minutes, say. I'm glad I read that. This is just, it's very faint. You can hardly read it, but I saved it, and 43 years later, I read it. It's dated June 7, 1973. That's 43 years ago, almost a half a century. But the guy is describing the power of a Zappa live experience. That's what we got in some of the music we played tonight, or any time we play Frank.
Yes, and for me the most amazing is that every time he played a piece, like when you say, which version do you want?
Yes.
Every time it was different.
Yes.
And that's amazing.
Yeah. This looks like another interesting interview. Better hold that. So, let's see, what's something... Now, this band, a few other people get added to it, but this basic band that these guys were just describing, a lot of people think that's their best favorite band. But no, there's too much other good music at other times. I don't make a favorite band.
Well, he had every member of the band was a great soloist. Amazing.
You're saying every band had great soloists?
No, that specific setup, like Jean-Luc Ponty.
Yeah, that group, they have amazing solos, yes. You're saying.
They were all amazing musicians.
Yeah.
On their own.
Yes.
So, and it takes a great leader to have these great soloists play together.
Yeah. I mean, he's so beyond anybody else in what he took on, what he challenged people with, how he could have great musicians working with him, make it worth their while. It almost like everybody, a reasonably bright, sane, powerful musician said, I got to go through the Frank school. You got to do it. Your career's not complete. You know, unless you go into it. We only got a few minutes, so maybe I'll read another review of something. Like here is, he did a lot of Sprechstimme, well, a lot of stuff on the band with the Mark and Howard. So in 1971, they did a concert at the UCLA Poly Pavilion, and that was released as a live album, Just Another Band from L.A. So this is before his accident. Let's see if he gets a bad review. This is in the Rolling Stone. It says...
Well, I would just like to comment that it's also very interesting that for him, this type of narration with just talking was a very important tool of his music.
Yes. Well, he thought that the early 20th century composers were trying to find the rhythms of speech and put in their music, and he thought the blues guys did that. And therefore, so he fused the classical early 20th century guys with blues, with the blues singer.
The duets you do with Ion.
Yes, yeah.
Is the art of the Sprechstimme.
That's right, yeah.
The conversation music.
I wasn't wrong to base my chart of the Endor meme on Zappa. Me and Zappa, we go way back, and we're like this. I'm putting my fingers together.
2 great soloists playing together.
Yes. Yeah, there used to be this, desire to have Beefheart sort of be with Zappa. And it only happened once in public, but that was pretty good. But what the audience now has is Bob and Zappa together, with Ion picking up the drums or something. So, let's see what these guys say about the mothers. Maybe you like Frank Zappa's vocally oriented new... Okay, so vocally oriented totally fits what we're talking about, Sprechstimme. So you got a vocally oriented Frank, and then a couple years later... Well, as soon as he stops the vocally oriented, he does instrumental. Then he comes up with a combination of the vocally oriented and the instrumental in the Jean-Luc Ponty band, whereas the Grand Wazoo was just pure instruments. It's vocally stress. It's only a phase. Maybe you like Frank Zappa's vocally oriented New Mothers. Maybe you thought all those instrumentals and 7/4 time with sneezing saxophones and slinky wah-wah guitar solos were too far out or dull or something. Maybe you like the mock oratorio style of 200 Motels and Live at the Fillmore. If that's the case, you might as well stop reading this and go out and buy Just Another Band from L.A. because it's just another Frank Zappa album with plenty more of the same. If, on the other hand, you got off to Ian Underwood whipping it out King Kong in its many versions with and without Jean-Luc Ponty, and My Guitar Wants to Kill Your Mama, that's Jean-Luc Ponty just earlier, not when he's in the group. This is 2 years before the Jean-Luc Ponty era. Anyways, with Ian Wonder, maybe you like Ian Underwood whipping it out, you're likely to find the New Mothers album disappointing in extremis. See, They don't like the Sprechstimme phase. You know what I mean? And then they dismiss Frank, and they don't notice he changed two years later, and there's a whole other different Frank available. He does that always over the next 20 years. He does that. It is probably pretty funny if you live in California, and it's entertaining the first time through, even if you don't. The singing, mostly by ex-Turtles Kalen, Volman, and Pons, is a super professional, maybe even virtuosic in light of the tricky dissonances and close harmonies Zappa writes so well. But the album is damn near all vocals, recitations, and one-liners. And like any spoken word record that strives for humor and surprise, it gets pretty boring once you've heard it and know what to expect. The music is strictly background. A synthesizer fill from Don Preston here, a single wheeze from Ian Underwood sax there, and Zappa's two brief guitar solos are too typical to save the album. It's easy enough to dig where Zappa's coming from, knowing his mania for 50s vocal groups and his penchant for charts whose climaxes are carefully arranged in advance. Visualizing Billy the Mountain, that's one of his operas. Visualizing Billy the Mountain trudging across the continent for his New York vacation must have had the mothers in stitches through at least the first couple of rehearsals. And everybody gets off to teenage lust like Eddie in Eddie, Are You Kidding? Don't they? Well, maybe some people get off to Ian Underwood's whimsical saxophone playing, of which there is none, or to Don Preston's keyboard wizardry, none of that either. So none of that in Ian Underwood's whimsical saxophone playing is not available on this album, nor is Don Preston's keyboard wizardry. What's left is a kind of fireside theater stage show without the density or the serious intent of that other unit from L.A. That which entertains a live audience will not necessarily entertain a record listener. That which entertains a live audience will not necessarily entertain a record listener in the sanctity of his own rec room. Frank, are you kidding? How about giving us some music along with the laughs next time around? What they don't understand is Frank's going to be playing for years, and he can donate a couple of albums to one phase, to one style, to one concept, right? So the person who's, are you there? Uh-oh. You got cut off. Oops. Oh, well, let's see. I don't know. I'll call her after. What was I saying there? Just had to play some music for the last couple minutes.